debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
I need your dollar, that's what I need.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates small businesses, the enduring lifeblood of our community, with the launch of the KBLA SMB Marketplace. For the first time, small to medium-sized businesses will have an opportunity to promote their goods and services on KBLA and take advantage of our powerful reach and local marketing power. The SMB Marketplace is hosted exclusively on KBLA1580.com and is accessible from all our social media channels. Whether you're a small mom and pop restaurant, a car dealership, or a professional practitioner, we invite you to join in this new KBLA Talk 1580 initiative to promote your business. As a Black-owned small business, you don't want to miss this unique opportunity to gain new customers on KBLA Talk 1580. For more information, contact us today at smb@kbla1580.com. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
And if I share with you my story, would you share your shadow with me? Time to get paid.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, two conversations. Up first, the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller Black Klansman that Spike Lee turned into a hit film, former law enforcement officer Ron Stallworth. His new book is Gangs of Zion, a black cop's crusade in Mormon country. He'll share it with us at the top of hour two. If you didn't see Black Klansman, if you've never seen it, amazing film starring Denzel's son, John David Washington. Check out Black Klansman. But the guy behind that, Ron Stallworth, joins us today at the top of our second hour. On the B side of hour two, the chair of the DNC, Jamie Harrison, is back to talk about Kamala Harris and black men, specifically the Harris Economic Opportunity for Black Men, which the campaign rolled out to some fanfare earlier this week. She's been talking to black men everywhere, every day this week, given that drama of last week. The campaign felt it, those Obama remarks, and they are going into overdrive, reaching out this week to black men. She spoke to Charlemagne yesterday, I think. Again, Jamie Harrison, the chair of the DNC, on this program today to advance this opportunity agenda for black men that she rolled out earlier this week. That's on the backside of our second hour. In our third hour, visionary artist, composer, and producer George Burton talks to us in hour 3 today about his new album. It's called White Noise, and it really is, I think it's fair to say, an ode to modern black life and resilience. The project, once again, is called White Noise, and George Burton will be here in our third hour to talk about it. But in this first hour, 2 more conversations. On the B side of this hour, what's up with Iran? Research Director at the National Iranian American Council, Dr. Asar Rad, on the paradox of Iran being framed as both fragile and menacing, an existential threat to America and the stability in the Middle East. As you know, we are getting more deeply involved in the Middle East, in part because of our concern about Iran. So we'll figure out and talk about what's up with Iran on the B side of this very hour. But we commence today's show in dialogue with the executive director of the progressive organization Our Revolution, Joseph Geevarghese. Joseph, good to have you on. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, Tavis. Wonderful to be with you today.
It's good to have you on today. Let me just start with this. What is a progressive to do in terms of the election in times like these?
Well, I think it's incumbent on all progressives to get out and vote, and to get out and vote to defeat Donald Trump. He is an existential danger to our democracy. And under his regime, I don't think any progress is possible, brother. And that being said, a vote for Kamala Harris is a vote that we can keep fighting to advance our progressive policy. She's not everything we want, but we got a shot to keep making progress.
Yep. How do progressives swallow that every election? It seems that every 4 years, and I regard myself as an unapologetic progressive, every 4 years we have these choices, and neither of the choices are ever perfect, and I'm okay with that because none of these public servants are perfect servants. I get that. And yet it gets harder and harder to swallow. The older I get, the more chronologically gifted I become, harder and harder to swallow that every election I don't seem to have always the true progressive choice that I want. Democrats are excited about their nominee, Republicans excited about their nominee, and we progressives hold our nose, swallow hard, and punch the button.
No, that's right, Tavis. I think one thing that's really important to remember is that progress doesn't happen overnight. Even if we elected Bernie Sanders in 2016 or 2020, all of our issues would not have been addressed. We still have to struggle to make progress. And the decision that's in front of us is really under which administration do we have a better chance of accomplishing the things that we care about. And I would argue in this case it would be Kamala Harris. Under Donald Trump, I think we're going to be playing defense. I think under Kamala Harris, we can go on offense on the things that matter the most. But that being said, no candidate is going to wave a magic wand and solve all problems.
Let's talk about, when we come forward, those things that matter most. Always fascinating to me to hear other progressives give me their list of the things that matter most to them. So we'll let Joseph Geevarghese, that is, do that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Vice President Kamala Harris.
I get it. The cost of rent, groceries, and utilities is too high. So here's what we're going to do about it. We will lower housing costs by building more homes and crack down on landlords who are charging too much. We will lower your food and grocery bills by going after price gougers who are keeping the cost of everyday goods too high.
Kamala Harris's economic plan is focused on lowering costs for families, so you can keep more of your paycheck. That starts with the cost of housing. For first-time homebuyers, she's offering $25,000 in down payment assistance. To build wealth, her plan offers up to $50,000 in new startup tax deductions. This is exactly how we can build generational wealth and strengthen our community, so we can get the chance to do more than just get by, but to get ahead.
You work hard for your paycheck. You should get to keep more of it. As president, I'll make that my top priority.
I'm Kamala Harris, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Harris for President.
From the first day of kindergarten through the day they graduate high school, in California, 38% of students attend a public school that fails to meet minimum health standards. That's why we need Prop 2. Voting yes on Prop 2 will fund urgent repairs at local schools, protect kids from toxic mold, asbestos, and lead, ensure clean drinking water, and repair leaky ceilings and storm damage. Yes on Prop 2. To fix what's actually broken. All funds go to local schools without raising taxes. You heard that right. So join the California NAACP, nurses and teachers, and vote yes on 2. Because all our kids deserve a safe place to learn. Ad paid for by Yes on Prop 2, sponsored by Nonprofit Education, Labor and Business Associations. Ad committee's top funders, California Building Industry Association, Coalition for Adequate School Housing, California Teachers Association.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Halloween's coming alive at Target. Jackie and Gordy the Jack-O-Lanterns here with a front porch view of Target's Halloween deals, like 20% off costumes with Target Circle. We're talking rock stars, witches, princesses.
Ooh, I think I'd look good with a cape.
I think so too, Gordy. Plus, hit the trick-or-treat jackpot with 20% off candy.
Now that's how you get porch traffic.
This week only, save 20% on costumes with Target Circle and 20% off candy. Make your Halloween come alive at Target. Restrictions apply.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley, Executive Director of Our Revolution, a progressive organization. The head of that organization is Joseph Geevarghese, and we're pleased to have him on this program in the first hour. All right, Joseph, we were talking a moment ago about holding our nose as progressives and voting in yet another election where everything we want on the list is not going to be addressed. I hear your point that we have a better chance of getting things done by voting for Harris over Trump. No question about that, if those are the two choices that one is looking at. Before I give you a chance to run your list of what does in fact matter to you in Our Revolution as a progressive organization, let me just say this. I understand the frame that you're in, and I've been in this frame for a long time as a progressive. And I've said many times, and earlier this week, you weren't here, of course, but on Monday of this week, I offered a commentary that was a bit critical of Barack Obama for his comments last week about black men. I called them a smackdown, and I think that's what they were. And everybody's had their say since then. As I mentioned earlier, we'll talk to the DNC chairman, Jamie Harrison, later on today's show because he wants an opportunity to come on for a half an hour to run the list of all that Kamala Harris has done and will do under this opportunity agenda for black men. She's talking to black men in Detroit and elsewhere this week. The campaign understood the impact of those Obama comments. They've gone into overdrive, as I said earlier, trying to respond to the fallout from what happened last week. I did note yesterday, the campaign announced, I guess yesterday, day before, that they are putting Obama back on the campaign trail, but he's going to Arizona. Not a bunch of Negroes in Arizona. They're making sure they use Barack Obama because there is a role for him to play, but they ain't sitting in that. He ain't going to Atlanta. He ain't going to Cleveland. He ain't coming to Watts. He's not going to Philly. He's going to Arizona. So they're going to keep using him, and that's a wise strategy, I think, on the part of the campaign. Don't put him back in the same space and have the same problem again. Having said that, I voted for Barack Obama not once but twice. For all those who think I've been critical of him for a long time, when I regard that as trying to hold him accountable, I said to Barack Obama, and I now say to you, that I gave him the thing that most matters to him, not once but twice. I voted for him when he ran against McCain and Palin. I voted for him, obviously, when he ran against Romney and Ryan. So Barack Obama got my vote twice, and I went about my business sitting in this seat of trying my best to hold him accountable. But I voted for him twice, so if you think I didn't, put down the crack pipe. But here's why I voted for him the first time, specifically. I voted for him the first time because I realized, having known him longer than y'all have known him, I knew him for years before he ran for president, I knew that he was not nearly as progressive as I am. But I voted for him, Joseph, because I hoped, wasn't even sure I believed it, but I hoped that voting for him would open the door to progressive possibilities. I saw as the way in, perhaps, to progressive possibilities, even if he is not as progressive as I am. Now, I must honestly tell you, That didn't quite work out. I can't give you a laundry list of things. I can't point you to a bunch of doors that I think he opened up for progressive possibilities, and yet I don't regret my vote. I'm just telling you that the other end of that equation didn't quite work out. I can't point you to a list of, again, doors that he opened to progressive possibilities. So that said, I hear what you're saying, but I'm telling you right now, brother, this ain't my first rodeo. So you may be right in your calculus, but tell me why you believe that this is going to open the door to progressive possibilities.
Well, look, at the end of the day, progressives are going to have to organize no matter who is in power. And you talked about Barack Obama. I voted for him twice. I got to work with Barack Obama when he was in the White House, pushing him to advance higher wages, to fight for union rights. And I'll tell you what, Tavis, first term, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and his advisors said no se puede. They're not going to tip the scales in favor of workers. And what we had to do on the progressive movement is call the question. And we call the question by joining with workers around the country to strike. And we started the Fight for 15 strike movement.
Mm-hmm.
And by putting tens of thousands of workers on the streets in front of the White House, I, in fact, led the first strike outside of Barack Obama's White House. We got the president to finally say that he was going to lead on raising wages using executive action. He was going to lead on cracking down on wage thieves who get lucrative federal contracts. But that all being said, did Barack Obama in his first term automatically say yes to everything we wanted? No. But we had to organize, and once we organized, we had that opening. And that's what we're going to have to do again, whether it's going to be on health care, whether it's going to be on wages, whether it's going to be on rebuilding unions and good manufacturing jobs in the Midwest. We're going to have to fight like hell.
Yep. There are two ways to read this. One way to read it is to go back to FDR. Who Obama was famous for telling this story of FDR meeting with A. Philip Randolph, the great labor leader. Since you're talking about labor, you know this story well, I'm sure. The great A. Philip Randolph, Chicago's own. A shout out to WVON today in Chicago. A. Philip Randolph met with FDR. Eleanor Roosevelt had arranged a number of meetings. And in one of those meetings, FDR asked A. Philip Randolph, what playbook would you want me to run? And A. Philip Randolph, excited at the opportunity to answer the president about what labor agenda he thought he should advance, took off and ran his list to FDR. The president finished listening to the list that A. Philip Randolph had given him. He said, Philip, that's a wonderful list. And I hear you loud and clear. Let me ask you, now that you shared that list, to do me one favor. He said, sure, Mr. President, what can I do? He said, go out and make me do it. Go out and make me do it. Now, Barack Obama got wind of that story somewhere and told that story a number of times in a number of settings as president. Go out and make me do it. And I always thought, as great a president as FDR was, and for the successes even that Obama had in certain areas, the more I heard that story come out of Obama's mouth, the more annoyed I got by it. Because if you are eloquent enough to tell me a story that FDR told A. Philip Randolph all these years later that we should go out and make you do it, then why can't you just do it on GP, on general principle? Just because it's the right thing to do. My grandmother, Big Mama, would put it this way, it's just too much like right. It's just too much like right for you to do it because it is the right thing to do. But you're going to stand up and tell me a story about how I should go out and make you do it. So the story that you've told now reminds me of what I just shared. So that if Obama believed ultimately that doing the right thing by labor, doing the right thing by workers is what he should have done in the first place. And once you put that heat on him, he eventually did it, whether we're talking about Obama or Biden or hopefully Kamala Harris over Donald Trump, if these are the two choices we're talking about in this conversation. Hopefully the same thing will work with her. But here's my question. I'm not naive in this. Why does it take that? Why does it take a president telling our revolution to go out and make me do it rather than just doing it?
You know, Tavis, I'm with you. It's incredibly annoying and frustrating that we're not able to identify leaders and elect leaders who will get elected and seize the mantle and drive an agenda. It's unfortunate that we don't have that. And the truth is we've got a corrupt political system where elected officials are taking money from corporations. They're getting influenced by all sides. And whichever side speaks the loudest tends to get heard. And that's unfortunate. I wish we had a different political system where policy didn't go to the highest bidder, but that's what we have. And in a case where, with progressives, we don't have a lot of money, but we do have a lot of people, and we have to invest that people power in organizing in order to trump the power of money. And that's just the unfortunate reality of politics. I wish we could get rid of Citizens United. I wish that Democrats would pick a side that would be with working people and not with Wall Street. But both parties are compromised, and that's a problem. And we have to work within that system until we can change the system.
Yep. So let me ask you to compare and contrast. Joe Biden has preferred and taken great leeway in bragging that he has been the best president labor's had maybe ever, but certainly in the modern presidency. Do you accept that he has been that great, that good a president on labor issues, on workers' issues? And is it your sense that Kamala can be better? I mean, I saw a quote from President Biden today. I think I was reading the New York Times. I read so many things every day. I think it was the New York Times, and I'm paraphrasing this. It's not an exact quote because I ain't got it in front of me. But the president basically said that he expects Kamala Harris to push out even further than he did, even as she is loyal to the things that he advanced. He said, I was loyal to Barack Obama, but I had to push out even farther than what Obama was able to do. So he says he expects Kamala to be loyal to the things they've done. He doesn't expect any 180s on anything that he did as president, but he does, in fact, expect her to find her own way, but to push out a little farther than he did. On the issue of labor and workers' rights, is that how you see it?
Look, I would say this. Biden was better than Barack on labor rights. He was better because he made more pro-worker appointments to the National Labor Relations Board. He was better because he actually not just talked the talk, but walked the walk and joined the picket lines. But here's the fundamental problem. Union density, the number of workers in unions has not gone up. In fact, it has continued to decline under Barack Obama, under Joe Biden. And that is a travesty because part of the reason that we have Donald Trump poised to win re-election is because unions in the Midwest crumbled. The blue wall that elected FDR, that elected generations of Democrats crumbled, and that was good union jobs disappeared and went overseas. And Barack Obama didn't help it, and Joe Biden has started to address that issue. But that being said, the number of workers in American unions has declined on Democrats' watch.
Yeah.
And that's where Kamala Harris can make a difference. And here's what she can do. It's the same thing that A. Philip Randolph asked Franklin Roosevelt to do. which was use the power of federal contracting to give people economic opportunity. The U.S. government is the biggest purchaser of goods and services in the American economy. And if Kamala Harris was serious about growing American unions, she would say, if you want to do business with the United States government, you need to have a collective bargaining agreement in place. FDR did that in 1941, but Barack Obama failed to do that during his first term. In his second term, I was there pushing him to do it. Joe Biden has failed to do that, and I hope Kamala Harris will, and we've got to keep that pressure on.
I've got a little less than 2 minutes left here. I'll give it to you, Joseph. So everybody's focused these days, as we have been, but now more laser-like on these 7 swing states where the polls indicate that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are neck and neck at 48%. What is our revolution doing in any of these swing states to pull it across the line for Harris, given that you think she's the better choice than Donald Trump?
So we are focusing not on winning Republicans, right? We're not going out trying to tout Dick Cheney's endorsement or Liz Cheney's endorsement. That's not going to work with base Democratic voters. What we're doing is we're zeroing in on 1.2 million progressives in swing states. These are people who voted for Bernie Sanders. They voted for Elizabeth Warren.
Right.
And we are knocking on doors, making phone calls and texting to get that base out to vote. And the key message that we're driving is exposing Trump's failed economic populism. Trump ran as a worker champion. He promised more jobs, better wages. He went to places like Lordstown and told GM workers, don't sell your homes, your jobs are coming back.
Right.
The truth is he lied. He lied about bringing back manufacturing, lied about creating good union jobs. And we're exposing that lie and showing that Kamala Harris is our best bet to deliver on economic populism.
His name is Joseph Geevarghese. He's executive director of Our Revolution, a progressive organization. There you have it, what they are doing in these swing states to tap into these progressives who might be able to help get Kamala Harris across the line in these swing states. Joseph, thanks for your work and witness. Good to have you on, sir.
Tavis, good to be with you, brother.
Thanks for coming on. When we come forward, a conversation about what's up with Iran, and a funny observation about that conversation. I enjoyed it immensely, but there was something funny about that that I kept laughing at the entire time. I'll tell you that joke when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Why does Tavis say, when we come forward? Because he's not going back. And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Vice President Kamala Harris says she's open to slavery reparations for Black Americans. In a radio town hall event with the Breakfast Club host Charlemagne the God in Detroit, Michigan yesterday, Harris said reparations must be studied. A North Carolina man is facing charges for allegedly threatening FEMA workers. The Rutherford County Sheriff's Office said 44-year-old William Parsons was arrested and charged with, quote, going armed to the terror of the public, end quote. Israel has reportedly told the U.S. it will not target Iranian nuclear and oil sites when it responds to Iran's recent missile attack. Reports say Israel has agreed to focus on military targets for its next attack. And Apple is introducing a new iPad mini. It's available to order now and will be in stores next week on October 23rd. It'll support Apple Intelligence, the tech giant's new suite of AI features. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Some people just know you could save money on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Those people are probably saving a carload of cash right now. So what are you waiting for? Check Allstate first for a quote today. You're in good hands with Allstate.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are back on the field tonight against the Mets in the National League Championship Series. Game 3 in the best-of-7 jumps off at 5 o'clock. The next 3 games are in New York. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts said he is not moving Shohei Ohtani in the batting order to give him more chances to bat with runners on base. Roberts is keeping Ohtani in the leadoff position. Here's something to keep on your radar if Ohtani continues to struggle in the playoffs. Ohtani is 0 for 19 at the plate with the bases empty. He's 6 for 8 with men on base. Stay tuned on this situation. Interesting development in the Lakers preseason game Tuesday night against Golden State in Vegas. Most of the crowd of 16,000 stood up and cheered when Bronny James entered the game with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Bronny finished the game but had only 2 points. He was 1 for 5 and missed all 3 of his 3-point shots. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer custom-made faux wood and real wood blinds and shutters, cellular shades, Roman shades, bamboo shades, exterior shades, and more, all at factory direct prices. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found BenefitsCheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. BenefitsCheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, bro?
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay. gets GA going slower.
Izervay or Avastin-capted Pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
It does indeed. Before I get into this next guest, I promise you I'll tell you something a little funny that occurred to me. I sit here every day in this chair listening to these conversations, and of course, being the interlocutor in these conversations, sometimes I find things sort of humorous. So one of my colleagues who's seated in the other room, I can see her through the glass, said to me during that conversation, which is hilarious, that only progressives can get away with mispronouncing Kamala's first name. Because when Donald Trump does it, anybody on the right does it, we scream and we yell, right? We've been saying for months now how to pronounce her first name. It's Kamala. It ain't Kamala. It ain't Kamala. It's Kamala. And we keep saying that. And every black person who hears it, I'm sure, shrieks. I laugh when people come on this program and call me Travis instead of Tavis. You're booked on the show. I've been in media for 30 years. And even people who know me sometimes will slip and say Travis. I'm okay with it. I deal with it. But I see y'all go crazy in social media when people mispronounce my name. Okay, I deal with it. As I say, you can call me late. You can call me anything. Just don't call me late for dinner, right? I'm used to it. But it was funny to listen to a progressive for a half hour lay out how they're supporting Kamala Harris and they want Kamala to win. I'm like, only progressives, my friend said, and she's right about that, can get away with mispronouncing her first name because like they can't get the name right, but they're doing the right thing, right? So we just deal with it. And so there's why I didn't correct him. I just let him roll. But just so you know, I heard that and I digress. In this half hour, a conversation about Iran. What's up with Iran? Research director at the National Iranian American Council, Dr. Asal Rad, on the paradox of Iran being framed as both a fragile and menacing existential threat to America and stability in the Middle East. Before I get into this conversation with her, let me just read a short paragraph. Who's this from? Thomas Friedman. I was reading Friedman's piece in the Times. And here's how Friedman sets up what's happening right now in the Middle East. Short paragraph, and I'll go straight to Dr. Rad. Here's what Friedman says. The United States is sending an advanced anti-missile system to Israel, along with U.S. troops to operate it. Iran's foreign minister says there will be no red lines governing Iran's retaliation for any Israeli retaliation for Iran's latest missile retaliation. And reports from the Persian Gulf say Iran has quietly told Arab Gulf states that if Iran is hit by Israel, Tehran may respond by striking Arab oil fields. If all this does not terrify you, then you are not paying attention, writes Thomas Friedman. Dr. Rad, I assume you are paying attention. What are you saying?
In terms of thank you for having me, first of all. But in terms of the current situation, it is very frightening where we've gotten right now in terms of escalation in the region, as well as a specific confrontation potentially between the U.S. and Iran, something that we were concerned about during the tenure of the Trump administration and thought the Biden administration would come in and take a very different approach. And unfortunately, what we've gotten is more continuity than difference between the two administrations. Mm-hmm. And now, really with Israel taking the lead, the potential of dragging the United States, and I'm using dragging sort of loosely here because in very many ways, the Biden admin has enabled all of Israel's actions over the last year that has created the current situation. But now with U.S. military personnel actually having boots on the ground in Israel and a THAAD anti-missile system, you see the potential to really drag the United States into a direct confrontation with Iran. And that's something that bipartisan, I mean, you talk about progressives, you can talk about conservatives. Across the country, there is no appetite for another U.S. war in the Middle East, and certainly not one with a country like Iran, which would be a much more formidable adversary than what we saw 20 years ago with the invasion of Iraq.
Let me come back to a point right quick, Dr. Rad. You not a point, but a phrase. It was a point, but a phrase you used a moment ago. That when it comes to this particular issue, you see more continuity rather than difference between the last two administrations. That's your phrase. More continuity, not difference. We're in the midst of a campaign, obviously, and there's clearly very little continuity on anything. There's so much difference between these two major party candidates. So on this issue, when you say there's more continuity than difference, unpack that for me.
Well, if you looked at the Trump administration, what they did is they pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal that the Obama administration had secured in 2015 and endorsed this maximum pressure campaign where they put more and more sanctions on Iran in order to create pressure to what they said they wanted a better deal. Now, obviously, President Biden served as vice president under the Obama administration, and he made the argument as a candidate that the decision to withdraw from that deal was a huge mistake, and that as president, he would return to that deal. What actually ended up happening is the U.S. never returned to the deal, and most of those sanctions remained in place. And in fact, the Biden administration has put more sanctions on Iran. And so in that sense, you don't see, besides the language that's used, you don't see much difference. There was some attempts at negotiations to return to the deal, but both sides, I mean, to be fair, both on the Iranian side and on the U.S. side, there wasn't really any progress made, in part because Iran had an election just months after our election. And so the administration the Rouhani administration that wanted a deal, once they were gone, it made it much more difficult for the U.S. to enter into negotiations. As far as, I mean, just the rhetoric that you're seeing, I mean, look at Vice President Harris had a clip a couple of weeks ago where she was asked what the number one U.S. adversary is, and her response was Iran, which was kind of a bizarre response given the power discrepancies and the fact that we've been facing, since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the question of Russia as a huge adversary, as a nuclear power who's now invaded a country in Europe. And when you listen to the language that Vice President Harris is using, it sounds, again, a lot more like the Trump administration that tried to bolster the idea of Iran as this great enemy.
How do you read, and I don't want to color this question any more than this. We could go 1,000 different ways if we had the time. But how do you read the fact that the U.S., my word, not yours, cares enough about this situation, is invested enough in this situation, pick your word, that they are willing not just to provide this system, this anti-missile system to Israel, but to put boots on the ground to help them operate the system. We're putting boots on the ground. We ain't done that in Ukraine. For the billions we've sent to Ukraine, we ain't put boots on the ground. But in this conflict, we are putting boots on the ground. That's a serious statement. When we come forward, I'll let Dr. Rad respond to that question. I'm looking at my clock here. Don't want to cut her off in 30 seconds. But how do we read that? That in this instance, again, no naivete here. I ain't stupid. I get it. But I want to hear her take on this. There are now boots on the ground, or will be shortly, in Israel, American troops. What do you make of that? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Standing up for everyday Americans is at the very foundation of who Kamala Harris is. Raised in a middle-class home by a working mother who instilled in her a passion for justice and equality. That's why when Kamala Harris became district attorney, she stood up for our kids, keeping them safe by prosecuting sex offenders. She also pioneered a program to give nonviolent drug offenders a second chance. As president, Kamala Harris will continue the fight for everyday Americans. She's already lowered the cost of your health insurance and medications. Insulin is now capped at $35 for seniors. But there's more to do because mortgages, rents, groceries, and utility bills are still too high. Harris's plan to fix it? Build more homes to lower prices and make the wealthy and billionaires pay their fair share so we get a break. All her life, Kamala Harris has been standing up for us, and she doesn't plan to stop anytime soon.
I'm Kamala Harris, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Harris for president.
Tavis Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Dr. Asal Rad, as we are talking about Iran, the paradox, in fact, of Iran being framed as both a fragile and menacing existential threat, not just to our country, but certainly to the Middle East. Watching my timer, a few more things I want to move through here. So let's just assume for the moment that you are right about Kamala Harris being wrong, that you are right about her being wrong, that Iran is our greatest threat, our number one enemy. And I can take your point in that regard, given all the threats that exist around the world. You look at China, you look at Russia. It's hard to say that Iran is our greatest threat, but that's what Kamala Harris said. That's her opinion. But beyond that opinion, you're not suggesting that even if she's wrong, that Iran isn't giving us a scare, that we should look the other way, that they aren't complicit in whatever fears we are feeling about what's happening in the Middle East, are you?
Well, if you look at the way that the U.S. has framed Israel's actions, because the reason why we're even in this tense situation right now is based on Israeli actions. The Biden administration stance is simply we will protect Israel's national security and we will defend Israel's right to self-defense. Mm-hmm. The problem with that framing is Israel's actions do not constitute self-defense. If you look at Gaza, you're looking at a situation where Israel stands accused of genocide in the world's highest court. If you look at Lebanon, it's Israel has invaded Lebanon and is carrying out a bombing campaign there. And even if you look at what is being framed as a threat on the Iranian side, both the attacks we saw in the beginning of October as well as in April were retaliations for Israeli attacks on Iranian sovereignty. And in fact, the reason why this latest attack that we saw in October, the reason that we're sending boots on the ground right now, is because Israel is planning another retaliation. But it's a retaliation to a retaliation. Israel carried out an assassination on Iranian soil in Iran's capital at the end of July. The reason Iran took 2 months to respond was because they were being told by the U.S. that there's a ceasefire talk going on and to not undermine those talks. And it wasn't until not only was there no ceasefire in Gaza, but Israel expanded the war actually into Lebanon that Iran took a retaliatory step. So when we look at it as Iran is posing a threat, that's only true in a vacuum where Israel is not doing anything, and that's just not the reality on the ground.
So speaking of on the ground, how do you read that we are so invested, we care so much about this, pick your term, that we are willing to put boots on the ground in Israel?
Well, if you compare it, for instance, to the situation in Ukraine, one of the big differences is Russia is a nuclear-powered state, right? Russia has the most nuclear weapons than any country in the world. The logic as to why the United States isn't putting boots on the ground in Ukraine is very similar to Cold War mentalities, right? Why the Soviet Union and the U.S. never directly fought, but fought through proxy wars, because there's the threat of nuclear war between the world's largest nuclear powers. Iran, on the other hand, does not have nuclear weapons. And so a confrontation with Iran is quite different than one with Russia, which in and of itself tells you about the threat levels, right? That's why the idea that Iran is the greatest adversary is sort of outside of the realm of reality. Iran does not have nuclear weapons. It doesn't have the economic power that the United States has, where the U.S. has sanctioned Iran, affecting its economy greatly. Of course, Iran does not have any power to do the same thing in kind. Yeah. So there's an asymmetry of power that is often left out of the conversation. But the fact that we're putting boots on the ground should be something that concerns every American, because it's not just happening based on a threat, despite the fact that that's the way it's framed. It is also the actions of Israel. Yeah. The fact that Israel continues to expand the war.
When we come forward, I want to ask Dr. Rad, given that she is a historian of the modern Middle East, I want to ask her how she sees the media's coverage of this. It's one thing to hear what Kamala Harris has to say. It's one thing to read what Thomas Friedman writes in the New York Times. It's another thing to get her 360 and 35,000-foot view of the way the media is covering this particular issue as it relates to Iran being both fragile and menacing. We'll do that part when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Vice President Kamala Harris.
I get it. The cost of rent, groceries, and utilities is too high. So here's what we're going to do about it. We will lower housing costs by building more homes and crack down on landlords who are charging too much. We will lower your food and grocery bills by going after price gougers who are keeping the cost of everyday goods too high.
Kamala Harris's economic plan is focused on lowering costs for families, so you can keep more of your paycheck. That starts with the cost of housing. For first-time homebuyers, she's offering $25,000 in down payment assistance. To build wealth, her plan offers up to $50,000 in new startup tax deductions. This is exactly how we can build generational wealth and strengthen our community, so we can get the chance to do more than just get by, but to get ahead.
You work hard for your paycheck. You should get to keep more of it. As president, I'll make that my top priority.
I'm Kamala Harris, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Harris for president.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
All right, Dr. Rad, as a historian of the modern Middle East, give me your view of the way, you got 4 minutes left here, your view of the way you see the media covering this particular conflict in this moment.
So if you look at the thing that's very important about media and the difference between media and an authoritarian state and a free democracy is that in a democratic state, a free and independent media is part of the checks and balances, right? It's not supposed to just repeat whatever the state says or whatever the government's narrative is. It's supposed to get at the truth. And sometimes it's supposed to challenge what the government says because governments can lie and governments can also present their own views of things rather than the truth on the ground. What you've seen in this particular situation is the media has tended to take whatever the state says, and it frames the issue by whitewashing in many ways Israel's crimes and why we are in the current situation. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Back in March, there was a poll in the U.S. where half of Americans couldn't say if more Palestinians or Israelis had been killed in the current conflict. And this was at a time where 30,000 Palestinians had been killed in Gaza, just astronomically more than anything on the Israeli side. The fact that that is something that Americans can't say is an indictment of the media, right? That the public can't be held accountable if the information they're getting leads them to not know some very, very basic facts on the ground. So if we don't know that Israel is committing crimes against humanity, then we're not as critical of the fact that our government is providing the weapons and the funding for those crimes to continue. Yeah.
I saw that. I saw that data point, and it was disturbing for me because, to your point, the number is so disparate, right? It's so wide that people being out of tune in that regard just seemed to. It was mind-boggling for me. I digress on it. Here's my exit question. As we sit here now, knowing that we are providing this anti-missile defense system to Israel, that there will be American boots on the ground in Israel, and Iran has been clear what their position is. Israel is clear about its position, and we know, as you said earlier, it's just a matter. It ain't a matter of if, but when. Israel is going to hit Iran again. They made clear the sites that they won't hit, but they've also said, Bibi said it literally, I just reading an hour ago, Bibi Netanyahu, we're going to hit Iran again. Trust and believe. We are about to hit them. We're not sending an anti-missile system over there because they're not afraid of response. But Israel has made it abundantly clear, as I sit here right now, we are about to hit Iran again at a time of our choosing. How concerned should we be in the last minute here?
It depends on if the U.S., if cooler heads prevail. What we would hope is that, look, the U.S. has immense amounts of leverage that it could use over Israel, and previous administrations have done it before. It is a question of whether or not we have the political will to do that in order to avoid not only a larger war in the region, but putting our own military personnel in harm's way. We should be concerned if Israel targets something like nuclear facilities or oil facilities, because that is an escalation that could drag us into a larger war.
Dr. Assad Rad is a historian of the modern Middle East, formerly with the National Iranian American Council. Dr. Rad, thanks for your insights. Good to get a better picture of the frame that we're in right about now. Thank you for your time. Wish you all the best today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know from BIN News. The National Coalition on Black Civic Participation held a rally in Baltimore to encourage black communities to vote. NCBCP President Melanie Campbell announced the organization is visiting 7 states to boost black voter turnout in the general election. As the November election approaches, civil rights organizations in Mississippi, including Mississippi Votes and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, will deploy poll watchers statewide. A Hackensack, New Jersey City Council member Leo Battaglia plans to resign amid accusations of using a racial slur against the town's African-American soccer coach, Sean Holder. Holder was informed by a Spanish-speaking parent who allegedly heard Battaglia's remarks during a match. And Buck and Gracie Clo's descendants of enslavers are funding a Louisiana program providing $1,000 monthly to 12 victims of police misconduct as reparations. Partnering with the ACLU, they aim to address their family's history with slavery and promote wealth redistribution to combat structural racism. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Have a great rest of your night and drive home safe. A possible jumper is currently on the right.
Some people just know you could save money on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Those people are probably saving a carload of cash right now. So what are you waiting for? Check Allstate first for a quote today. You're in good hands with Allstate.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are back on the field tonight against the Mets in the National League to give him more chances to bat with runners on base. Roberts is keeping Ohtani